Y'all laughing at me? Yeah, we're live. Okay, good. Thank you guys for coming tonight. This is BACEF's general meeting, and tonight we have Elizabeth Knight, and she owns a collective called Píanta, Tínta, and she makes RSO and CBD oils and tinctures and all kinds of lovely, wonderful things made from cannabis. And tonight she's going to talk to you guys about CBD and RSO oil. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Can you move the projector?
Oh, the projector?
Oh. On top of the projector, is there buttons that... I won't touch anything. Yeah, just point.
Does this do anything?
This changes the aspect, so
Very good screen is what it is.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Okay.
Would you want to leave it like that? I mean, that's
I mean, I can-
word. You can't
Yeah.
monitor which one it is. But it's going through it. If you see.
Are they all cut off?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
we can leave it like that. That's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. Okay. So my name is Elizabeth Knight, and I have a collective. I started back in 2014, the end of 2014, and my partner is a naturopath. So we were doing a bunch of research and came across CBD, and I had no idea what it was. And so I did a little bit more digging, and I've made tinctures for the last 20-25 years. I really enjoy making herbal tinctures for family and friends, and so this was something that felt like a good fit, because the more I read about CBD and all the benefits and all the conditions kind of it covered and helped with, I became more intrigued. So I had a grower friend up in the foothills and never thought anything about it, and all of a sudden now I'm interested. So I asked him if he knew of anybody that had high CBD strains, and back in 2014 it was kind of really hard. I asked around, I couldn't find a whole lot, but he had a friend that had some ACDC, and I said, can you get him to grow me just a couple plants and I can experiment? So that's kind of where it started. And then over the years, I mean, I'm still learning. There's so much information out there on the internet, it's a little bit overwhelming. So I started off with just the high CBD, very low THC tinctures, and the more I read and research, THC is a really important thing too. So, so I thought, well, it would be really neat to have a high THC tincture, and then people can customize it. They can get a little of each. They can play around with the dosing so that it is working for them and their conditions. So that's when I added the high THC tinctures, and then I experimented with the RSO. I had read Rick Simpson's book, went through his whole website, and of course we all probably know somebody who has gone through cancer, and he had so many testimonials about RSO and cancer, so I thought I want to try my hand at that too. So that was an interesting process, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So right now I have people join the collective, which is free. I just require a doctor's recommendation and photo ID, and then people can get product. And I try to help people along the way as far as education. So if I don't know the answer to it, I will try to find the answer to it and relate it to them. Because when you're sick, you don't have time to go researching a lot. You don't have the energy to research and find out what's working. So it's really nice when someone hands you a couple of flyers and say, read this, right? Okay. So why tinctures? I've been interested in tinctures, like I said, for over 25 years. Tinctures have been around for a long, long time. To me, it's one of the easiest ways to dose. The method you get for your cannabis medicine is very individual and what works for you. But I have a lot of seniors that don't want to smoke, they don't want to vape. And so tinctures is so easy. It's you can figure out how many milligrams of a cannabinoid is in a drop and kind of figure out how much of the dose you need. And once you ramp up to that dose and you are getting less pain, better sleep, less seizures, then you know that's your dose and that's what you would stick with. And the same with THC. You can start off with a very low dose and just titrate up, and that way you avoid the overdosing, because a lot of seniors don't want to experience THC whatsoever. They just want the non-psychoactive part of it. So if they start off with 2 or 3 drops, they can slowly titrate up, find the dose that's right for them without having a really bad experience, because once you have a bad experience, especially for the older crowd, they don't want to ever do it again, right? Tinctures, what I use in my tinctures is 190 non-GMO ethyl alcohol. So the higher the alcohol, the more it will pull out the compounds out of the cannabis plant. Yes, you can use vodka, but people use vodka. It's easy to get. You can't get Everclear. It's very hard to get Everclear in the state now. You used to be able to go down to Bevmo and pick up a bottle. But so there's certain companies now that are geared towards the cannabis business that you can get the 190 non-GMO ethyl alcohol. So that is what I use to pull out the compounds of the plant. Another reason why I like tinctures is because it acts pretty quickly. Smoking and vaping, yes, it's very immediate. Edibles take an hour and a half to 2 hours maybe to process through your liver and digestive system. But tinctures are pretty, within 20-30 minutes, I would say. But because of the high alcohol, it permeates the mucous membranes, goes right into your bloodstream. So it's a pretty fast delivery system. And then, of course, the shelf life, 2 to 5 years. So you don't have to worry about oils going bad on the shelf. That's pretty bad for you if oils go bad. So that's why I like tinctures, and I found that more and more people are starting to like them too, because you can get very consistent dosing. And so that's just an example of what I do. That's the RSO oil down there, and that's some of the tinctures. This is a ACDC plant that I grew, and now with the new laws, there's going to be a ton of labeling laws. But early on, I wanted people to know what they were getting in that bottle. When you look at Amazon or go on the internet and look at CBD oils, hemp oils, they're very generic. You look on that label, right? I've seen some, there's no ingredients. You're assuming it's hemp oil, right? What else is in there? And then you switch it around and you're looking for, well, how much CBD or how much THC, how much CBG, how much cannabinoids are in there. Sometimes all they do is they put a total cannabinoid content on the bottom, which doesn't mean much, because you still don't know how much is in there. So what I started doing was I lab test through Steep Hill Labs in Berkeley, and so what I started doing was putting exactly what the test results right on the label so people can see. So here, there's 21 milligrams per milliliter of THC. Now, a milliliter is about 20 drops, not dropperfuls, just 20 drops. And so you can figure out in a 30 milliliter bottle, which is 1 ounce, you would take 30 milliliters, 30 times 21, and that's the total THC in that 1 ounce bottle. So you have an idea of that. Like I said, there's a lot of things on the market, the hemp oils. The FDA last year picked out 6 different hemp CBD oils on the market, randomly tested them, and found out that most of them are not what they said they were. Some of them, 1 or 2 of them, had no CBD in them whatsoever. A couple of them had CBD, but not to what was listed on the label. So there's a lot of gray area in that CBD hemp oil industry. So I just think it's important that people know what they're getting and that they can figure out milligrams if they're into dosing that way. So this is our internal cannabinoid system in our bodies. Research has shown that there's CB1 and CB2 receptors. The light blue ones, primarily in the brain, and that's where the THC hooks onto the receptor. And the CB2 are the other ones, but they're more in the peripheral and then in the immune system. Now, CBD doesn't fit into either CB1 or CB2, but indirectly it has effects on the body. Obviously, we know that. Okay, so CBD stands for cannabidiol. There's hundreds of compounds in the cannabis plant, and back in 1960s, Raphael Mechoulam in Israel got a grant, and he decided to study the cannabis plant, which was kind of unheard of at that time. And so through his years of research, he's called the grandfather of cannabis, and kind of dialed down and found the THC. That was like the first major cannabinoid that was studied for many, many years. So CBD is another major cannabinoid in the plant. There's a lot more cannabinoids, but they're in very small amounts. And I think they're still finding new ones all the time. CBD is non-psychoactive, it's safe, and non-toxic. So people use it throughout the day, and there's no you can only take so much. Naturally counteracts the negative effects of THC. So it's always a good idea, especially if you're somebody new or beginning with THC, to have some CBD on hand. CBD naturally counteracts the negative or the uncomfortable effects of THC, which could be, I'm sure most of you know that, rapid heart and dizziness, kind of head stuff going on, a little paranoia, things like that. And if anyone has any questions, you can just raise your hand. This next list here is a lot. I mean, the list is long, but this is just some of it that CBD has been found to benefit. Okay, so obviously convulsions, movement disorders, any kind of seizure disorders. I had a couple of members that came into me and they had the seizure disorders, and there's a whole variety of different seizure disorders. But for the most part, they were on heavy-duty drugs, 4 to 5 different heavy drugs. They didn't like the side effects. So they started using CBD, and yes, they had to figure out themselves what their dose was. There's no standardized dosing in cannabis that works for you, it'll work for you, and it'll work for you. So you have to be willing to be open and experiment and see what works for your body and your condition. So I had a 2 or 3, and some of them were kids, a teenager, an older gentleman, and another woman. But for the most part, this older gentleman he was pissed off that he was taking these heavy-duty drugs. So he started the CBD, got up to 10 drops in the morning, 10 in the evening, got rid of his drugs. He took all his drugs to his doctor and says, I don't need this shit. Good for him, and it's up to him and his doctor how he wants to get off of those drugs if he does. So I never tell anybody, because I am not a healthcare provider, so I cannot tell people, treat people, diagnose or anything like that. So that's pretty exciting, because if they can at least reduce their prescription meds and use cannabis, then that's 50% less side effects that they're having from the prescription drugs. So that's pretty cool. It's been shown to reduce inflammation, anxiety, pain, and depression. I think the most prominent conditions that I see is insomnia, and people can't sleep for various reasons. It might be for pain, anxiety and stress, whatever, busy mind. So insomnia is one. Anxiety is another one. I can't believe how many people, young, old, are anxious. And sometimes they know why, most of the time they don't know. They're just constantly anxious. So CBD is great. It kind of quells that anxiety and gives you kind of a more sense of well-being. So that's, I think anxiety is a big one where I've seen great results with CBD. Obviously a powerful pain reliever, neuropathic pain, any kind of chronic pain, pain from post-injury or post-surgeries, that's another big one, pain. And it's been found effective in treating gastrointestinal disorders. From what I've seen and what I've heard members, they've tried the CBD for gut issues, which works to a point, but when they added some THC, it doesn't have to be a large amount, that THC, when they work together, it really quells their gut problems. It really relaxes the gut, all the muscles and everything, so I would say try them both. Try them both. And this top one here, this is from Dr. Bonnie Goldstein. She's at Cannabis Centers down in LA. She's worked with pediatric epileptic patients for years, but she also works with adults. But anyway, that top thing's from her. But basically, there's been a lot of studies, not on humans yet, but at least on lab rats, that CBD appears to both have anti-tumor effects, CBD and THC. But CBD, what they're finding out, is more of like it stops metastasis of cancer cells to other parts of the body, whereas THC works directly on apoptosis, which is cancer cell death. So when I see people who have cancer, I always say, if it were me, I would do both. If they both have anti-tumor, they work in different ways in the body, why not have like a wham bang, 1-2 punch, rather than just rely upon one cannabinoid. And I'll get to Rick Simpson in a moment. Immunomodulator, so it helps regulate the immune system, so it works more effectively. Neuroprotectant, so people with neurological problems, I've seen, I've only had a few members that have had neurological. One guy had Parkinson's, and he was really excited to try CBD, and so he did, and he only gave it 1 week. And so after 1 week, I called him and I said, well, have you noticed anything? He says, well, and some of his problems with the Parkinson's was, one of the things is when they start to write, their writing gets tinier and tinier and illegible. I mean, you can't even read it. And the other thing is movements, involuntary movements. And so that was his big thing, were the movements. But what got better first was he noticed that his writing actually got bigger and he can read it. And that was within a week. And so I'm like, okay, don't you think that's good? And he's like, well, I want, so he didn't give it enough time. So you have to be willing to experiment and give it some time, because Parkinson's doesn't come on overnight. So things have to kind of rewind and go backwards. And so, just that his handwriting got much better in 1 week, that's big to me. To him, he didn't think it was big. So, some people are like that. If they don't get instant results, like with prescription drugs, you kind of get an instant result. Well, some people just move on and then give it up. So if you have a cannabis product and it's higher CBD than THC, most likely you will not feel any effect of the THC. Again, CBD naturally counteracts the psychoactive effects of THC. So for example, a 20-to-1 ratio CBD to THC, or 25 or 30, you're going to have the benefit of both cannabinoids, but you're not going to get high. When you have closer to like the 5-to-1, yeah, in a new user you might notice something, but in an experienced user with cannabis, you're not going to feel that either. It's more when you get to more to a 1-to-1, equal amounts of CBD and THC, that you will probably feel something, and it depends, of course, on the dosage, how much you're taking. And of course, when you have a tincture with more THC in it than CBD, you're going to have psychoactive effects at higher doses. So, CBD is alerting in low doses and sedating in high doses. This is kind of news to me because, you know, what is a high dose, what is a low dose? A lot of my members who were taking CBD, some of the 420 doctors would say, take CBD and it'll help your insomnia. Well, again, it depends on why can't you sleep. If you're in pain and you take care of the pain, then you can probably sleep. If it doesn't have to do with that, then a lot of times, you know, if they're taking 5, 10, 15, or 20 drops, it's still a pretty low dose. It usually keeps people up. So CBD is really great for daytime, especially when people have to function, they have to go to work, they have to work with other people. CBD, you don't have to worry about any negative effects of THC. High doses, I think they're talking about 100, 200 milligrams. What I'm thinking of, and which that's a lot. I mean, for a tincture, you know, you take half the bottle. So I think what they're talking about is maybe a RSO kind of oil, a concentrated CBD oil, and it concentrates the CBD down into, you know, 100, 400, 500 milligrams. So that's what I would think would be a high dose. Yeah, I talked about during the daytime. Alrighty. Now, someplace that I send people to is a website called projectcbd.org. It's all about CBD, and the nice thing is they have a list of conditions, and you can click on any conditions, and up comes a list of all the articles and peer-reviewed PubMed studies done on that condition and CBD. So it's really a nice. Sometimes it's hard for people to read these peer-reviewed studies because it's in a terminology that we're not used to. In fact, I can't really read them too well, so I skip down to the bottom, and it has basically result of the study, or the summary of the study, right? And it tells you, okay, from our study, this is what we found. You know, CBD is great, and it has, you know, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, Project CBD, Martin Lee is, I think, the director. So he wrote this thing because a lot of people had questions about hemp-derived CBD, as opposed to CBD from high-CBD cannabis strains. And, you know, CBD is CBD. It's the same thing, but industrial hemp is grown for fiber. It's grown for clothing. In fact, they use industrial hemp to clean up toxic sites in the soil because it's a bioaccumulator, so it draws up all the toxins in the stalks. Another thing to just pay attention to is the hemp-derived CBD in a lot of CBD oils. Yes, it has CBD, but it really lacks a lot of the whole plant profile. You know, you've got your terpenoids. Those are the things that make the smell of the plant, and every terpenoid has a great benefit to it. It might be an anticonvulsant, anti-inflammatory. So you put those terpenoids and flavonoids and all these other, these compounds in the plant together with the cannabinoids. I think you have a powerhouse rather than more of a, single molecule medicine. And then this is really kind of a gray area too. You know, it's against the law to grow hemp, and so a lot of people say, well, we got all of our hemp by crushing all the stems and the seeds, and we extracted out the CBD. Well, you have to, for industrial hemp, you have to crush a lot of that stuff to get anything out of it. So to me, it seems like a waste. So anyway, there are some differences between hemp CBD and cannabis, the high CBD strains of cannabis. And some people don't know this, but the U.S. government, I think back in the 70s, was it? They held the patent 507, which says cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. So the government recognizes there's medical benefit to it. So this whole thing about there's no benefit, I'm not even going to get into that part. So if you have somebody who has a condition and you want to find out more about CBD and that condition, a good place to go is PubMed.com. It's the National Institute of Health, and they're peer-reviewed clinical studies. And so you can type in at the search at the top, you can just type in multiple sclerosis and cannabis, or CBD, and then all the related studies will come up, and you can click on each one to see what's been studied. And also on PubMed, there's some prescription drugs that might have 100 or 200 studies done on them. Wait, cannabis has over 20,000. So again, it's like, this has not been studied? Yes, it has. We just can't study it in the humans. And again, the project CBD.org, that's everything CBD. So they got great resources there to learn more about that. Okay, so that's kind of about CBD. Is there any questions about CBD? Anyone? Okay. Okay, so this next section is on RSO. So how many people know what RSO oil is? Quite a bit. Okay. RSO started with Rick Simpson back in, I think, 2003. He had some skin cancer. He also had a brain injury. And so between the skin cancer and the brain injury, he healed himself with cannabis. He decided to start experimenting. He started growing. I believe he's up in Canada now. And he's had a ton of problems with the local authorities for many, many years, but he's persevered, and he gives talks around the world. So he started growing the plants to help his neighbors, his friends. He just wanted to give it away. He's like, this is magic, So he's got a lot of testimonials. He worked with over 200 or 300 patients and helped them get back to health. I don't know percentage-wise how many he helped, how many didn't make it. I don't know, but from what I've seen, it's pretty amazing. I have some people with, right now, I have a woman in her 70s with peritoneal cancer, and I've got 3 men in their 60s and 70s with lung cancer. And of course, they went through chemo radiation. Most people do that whole thing, and then you finally get them, and they want to try cannabis, and boy, I mean, they've been through the ringer. And so it takes a while to get their body kind of back in balance to where they're actually kind of healing. But just from my feedback, those people that I'm working with, they are taking the Rick Simpson oil on a daily basis, and they're also taking a High-CBD tincture. Again, both of those together have anti-tumor effects. And this is what I've seen. I mean, I think it's amazing. So they went through chemo and radiation. They got tired of it because they've been through many rounds of it. They seem to be doing okay. Wham, the cancer's back. They got more tumors in their lungs. Things are not looking well. And they're like, I'm not doing this anymore, right? So that's when they turned to cannabis. So they started taking the RSO and the CBD. And what has happened is I followed them over a year and a half now, these 4 people. And they go, and they're very good at going back for testing. Every 3 months, they have you come back for a CT scan, which is more radiation. But at least it's a gauge as to what's going on. So they go back for the scan, and every scan comes back unremarkable. Unremarkable. Mm-hmm. So that means over a year and a half, every 3 months they go back, those technicians that do these scans are expecting you to have more tumors. They're expecting the tumors to grow. They're expecting to say, well, now it's in your spine, or now it's in your brain. And so that's exciting to me to see that. Again, there's no proof, there's no studies done on that, but I tell you, hearing from people's personal stories, that really does it for me. So, so that's pretty cool. Every time it's unremarkable, meaning no new activity, no new tumors. So they're kind of on this holding pattern, and of course there's more to it. You have to kind of change lifestyle changes, diet changes, spiritual, whatever. It's not just cannabis, but it plays a big part. So that's just been my experience with the RSO oil. Anyway, this was just a little snippet of Rick Simpson talking about his skin cancer. Basically, he went through some surgery on some of the skin cancer he had, and it was not fun, and he didn't want to do it again. So since he was making that oil, and he used it for his head injury, which healed, he decided just to put some on the skin, put a Band-Aid over it, and he forgot about it for like 4 days. And after 4 days, he peeled it off, and he couldn't believe there was new skin underneath, and it was cool. So that was just a thing that he was talking about there.
Now, that's straight, would be Rick Simpson oil. He's talking about straight THC, or whatever.
Yeah, when I say Rick Simpson oil, when I say Rick Simpson oil, I'm talking about concentrated THC oil, okay? There are oils out there that are CBD concentrated, but that's, I would just say concentrated CBD oil. Rick's very adamant about the fact that he doesn't talk about CBD, Rick Simpson. I mean, years ago, he was using the oil. He says it's the THC that kills the cancer. And this is coming from Rick Simpson, not me. So, so yes, the Rick Simpson oil is concentrated THC oil. So also, when people want to go through chemoradiation, great. But what they use the RSO oil for, if they're not using it to target the cancer, they're using it for the negative effects of the chemotherapy. So it helps to stimulate appetite, because there's a lot of people that get to that point where they have the wasting, and they're just losing weight, and they cannot keep the weight on. So that really helps in that way. Anti-nausea, anti-pain, and of course, sleep. I've used the oil before for sleep, and it's a little too much for me for sleep, because I have a hard time getting up in the morning and getting going. So Rick worked with some other people: HIV, AIDS, arthritis, MS, diabetes, leukemia, Crohn's disease, depression, osteoporosis, psoriasis, insomnia, glaucoma, asthma, etc. So that's the ones he's worked with. As for me, cancer is a big one. And autoimmune diseases, they find that the THC oil really helps with pain, with muscle, with muscle movement, all that sort of stuff. Few people use it for sleep, but I would say the main bulk of who I see is using it for cancer. But as you can see, there's a lot of other applications for it. So this is just an example of one of the first batches of RSO that I made. I had it tested because I wanted to see how much THC is in it, you know. So over here, that's the percentage column there. So about 65% THC. So you might start off with raw material that has, I don't know, 18% THC, say. And by the time you extract it and then you cook off the alcohol, it condenses it down to this thick oil. And so as it's condensing, it's concentrating the THC. So so you come out with a very high. I mean, 65 is not super high, but it's pretty high. It does have some other cannabinoids in there, but in very low amounts. But again, Rick Simpson says it's the THC that's the healing. And one thing that he says, Rick Simpson says, is that if you're going to make the oil, get a indica, or at least an indica dominant strain material to use. He says that's very important because, especially cancer patients, sleep is healing. And so he wants people to take the oil, say at nighttime, and just sleep, because it's very healing to do that. You don't need to be stimulated with more of a sativa in your head or anything like that. You just need to be body relaxed so your body can do its work and heal. So this is the first time I made RSO. Okay, it's pretty simple, the process. It's just kind of labor intensive. It just takes a while, and you have to be patient. The first time I did this, oh God, from beginning to end, I think it took 8 or 9 hours. It's a long damn time. And I'm in an apartment, so with no, I'm in an apartment. Why are you laughing back there?
Sorry.
No. So the first time I made it, so it's an apartment. So you need ventilation. I did not blow up the apartment. No, you need ventilation. So the more the better. If you have an outdoor, someplace outdoors, great. If you did it indoors, you need fans to move the fumes out a window. So I was a little nervous the first time I did it because I had a fan here by the sink, and then I had a box fan in the window, blowing everything out that way, hoping everything would be okay. And it was. But that was the only time I did it indoors, and I kind of learned a lesson because I don't want to be freaked out while I'm doing it. I want to enjoy it. So basically, these are the steps. It's pretty basic. So this is like a 3-gallon crock pot, and you have your raw material over there. So you take, I think when I did it, I took about a pound at a time. So I just did a pound of raw material, and then you have your 190 ethyl alcohol, right? And you just dump the alcohol in there until it fills up just over the raw material. And then I just had a stick there, and I just worked it like that, just crush it up. And that alcohol is basically going to pull out all the cannabinoids and all the good stuff. It's also going to pull out chlorophyll. See how green it is there? But chlorophyll in itself is healing. So to me, people freak out, on the market. You want things clear and purified and super duper CO2. That's okay, but there's nothing wrong with chlorophyll. We need chlorophyll. So that's healing in itself. So Rick Simpson says, once you put the alcohol in there, you kind of mush it around. I think he says 6 minutes on his video. And it doesn't seem like a long time, but with 190 proof, it's pulling things out fast. I always leave it in there. I leave it in there for an hour. I just come back to it every so often, kind of work it, and then leave again. But I just do it for an hour. And then the next step is to have a large pot. Have a large pot with cheesecloth. Cheesecloth is a great strainer. And so you basically just empty out all the raw material on the cheesecloth there and let the liquid fall through. And then, once the cheesecloth is full of all the raw material, just bundle it up and just squeeze the hell out of it. Of course, if you have a tincture press, of course I refined the whole process as time went on, but this was my first time, so it was all by hand. So you're just squeezing as much liquid as you can out of there. And so then now you have this pretty green liquid right there. And then you've got your wide mouth jars, and these are like gallon jars, and with a natural paper filter. So what you're going to do is just pour the liquid through the paper filter, and it just filters out any kind of sediment stuff. Sometimes material gets in there, so it's going to filter that out. And once you have that, then that's when you switch to the almighty rice cooker. And this is just your standard cheap rice cooker from Target. And what you do is you just fill it up, and you might have to fill this up once or twice because you might have a couple of these jars full of liquid. So you would just fill the rice cooker up, put it on high, and wait. This is the waiting game. Okay, so you're waiting. It comes to kind of a rolling boil. You can smell the fumes. You don't want to be right over it because those ethanol fumes they're pretty strong. And so you want to do this outside, where you have a nice breeze, on a picnic table, out in your backyard, whatever. And so you basically watch the liquid evaporate. So now it's concentrating all the oils and resins. And as it's going down, if you have more liquid in the jars, you keep pouring a little bit more in, waiting till it cooks down. So this is when you have friends and you're talking and having fun, waiting for all this to happen. And so the end result is, after you put all the liquid in the rice cooker and all the alcohol cooks off, or most of it cooks off, then what you would do is there'll be a little thin layer of the liquid on the bottom and it'll start bubbling. And once it starts bubbling, you've got to keep your eye on it because you don't want it to burn off everything and then burn. So you kind of work it around like that on the bottom. And when the bubbles start getting a little bit smaller, that's when you get just like a wide mouth canning jar. I think they're about that high, but it should be a wide mouth, not something with a little neck, but a wide mouth. And then what you do is take a spatula and you just scrape it, and it's still fluid. You scrape it into the canning jar. That's pretty much it. And then what you do with this is get just a little coffee warmer that you plug in, and it's not really hot. It just keeps it warm, but it's warm enough to, when you put it on there, I don't know if you can see, but these are all bubbles here. And if you see bubbles, that means there's a little bit of the alcohol left in there. Because I don't use butane, hexane, naphtha, camping fuel. Some people use camping fuel. Any of that nasty stuff, I don't care if there's a little bit of alcohol left in there. It's just pure non-GMO ethyl alcohol. So what you do is just leave it on there like all day, and just check back. And these large bubbles, pretty soon, when the alcohol is almost all gone, it gets to like it's just fine little tiny bubbles, and that's when you know it's done. So on average, if you take a pound of raw material, it'll make about 2 ounces of oil and approximately 60 grams of oil. So, and then what you can do is you can get 1 cc syringes and just syringe up, so it should make 60 syringes, 60 1-gram syringes. So that's pretty good because it is deceiving. It doesn't look like much, but when you start filling the syringes, you're like, oh. So that's really the basic process of the RSO. Of course, if you start with material that is just buds, you're going to get a higher THC at the end. But not everybody can get a hold of a pound of bud. So if you have people that have trim material, the stuff I've tested is about 4 or 5% THC, as opposed to maybe 15 to 20%. So it's still going to work with the trim material, but it might come out like mine's the lowest mine has ever been is like 41% THC, up to about 65. So Rick Simpson says you should be able to get a 90-something% RSO oil. Yeah, I've never seen that. I know nobody has done that, so I don't know how you do that.
He uses the whole plant, buds and all.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen that. His video, he dumps everything, leaves everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he gets. The process is the same, so I don't know how you get 95% THC. I don't know.
So I have a question. A lot of people have problems with the taste of RSO because it's a very strong.
Yeah.
Is there a way at the end of this process to flavor the taste of it, or to help? Because a lot of patients I find will turn their nose up at it just because it doesn't taste palatable.
I know. I've had a lot of people start it and then just stop it because I can't stand the taste.
Reason, yeah.
And it's like, well,
it tastes better than
sick
cancer.
or the
yes.
taste. What do you want?
I mean, it's medicine.
Yeah.
Medicine isn't supposed to taste
You're
good.
going to go through chemotherapy. You didn't complain about that. It's like,
yeah.
But
yeah.
is there a way?
Well, what I would tell people is what's worked for a lot of people If you don't like the taste, now I have not experimented with essential oils or any flavorings in the RSO because I don't know if there'd be anything strong enough to cover up that flavor. But if you get, go to the health food store, get some gel caps, empty gel caps. You can, yeah.
So
You're not eating it, you're taking it like a pill.
I've
So
also
just
heard of mixing it with like coconut oil, and
Yeah.
I think that might ameliorate some of the taste.
uh,
I myself am thinking of like vanilla flavoring.
vanilla.
Is very strong, and
Well,
that might cut some.
You have to do some experimenting.
I know. I wonder.
Yeah.
Report back.
Report back. So that's not. So people that complain about the taste, I just say, put the dab, take a toothpick or whatever, take the syringe, put a dab inside the gel cap, put the cap on, and do a whole bunch of them so you've got a supply of them,
Swallow.
and then just swallow one. Swallow one.
Is there any benefit to absorbing it in your mouth rather than swallowing?
I think so. Yeah, because when you absorb things in your mouth, that is the best way. It's gonna get into the mucous membranes and into your system a hell of a lot faster. If you swallow a pill, it has to go through your digestive tract. Your liver has to process it. So yeah. So if you can put it on the back of your tongue, you can put a dab of it on a cracker and eat it. I tell people, however you can get it in you, that's the way you do
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say peanut butter works for me because I take it every day.
Oh yeah?
Peanut butter, like I'll just do my little rice size with peanut butter 3 times a day.
Oh cool.
So
Yeah. See.
it's helpful.
Yeah.
Chocolate too.
Chocolate.
For people who can't eat cannabis oil, there was a time that in dispensaries they actually had glycerin suppositories
Yeah.
made
Yes.
with cannabis
Thank
oil,
you. Thank you.
which
Yeah.
is really important for cancer patients.
Yes, yes. And especially cancer patients that have cancer down in the lower region, prostate, peritoneal, colon, uterus, whatever. And the people that go, oh, I can't take concentrated THC, I can't stand the high, I can't do that. I say, okay, try it this way. Take the RSO oil and you take a syringe and you syringe up a little bit of the RSO oil and also coconut oil as a carrier. Because when I'm talking about a dose, Rick Simpson says start off with a half a grain of rice size. Okay, so you put a grain of rice size down there and you're like, God, that's small. Half of that is what I recommend people should start off with. Some people are used to THC, they take it every day. They're not going to notice that drop, right? So then you would just double that, go up to the size of a grain of rice, double that. So the whole idea is to get as much in you, if you're very ill, get as much in you as quick as you can. Some people can't get past that grain of rice size. It's like, I tried to go up to 2 grain of rice size doses and I just couldn't do it.
Because,
That's it. They're just, more people are more sensitive to THC and it just whacks them out. They can't function because some people are very ill but they're still functioning during the day, shopping, taking care of their family, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't, taking it at nighttime is the best time because then the next day they can pretty much function.
Yeah.
But what you were talking about, and I have it up here in this flyer, is people that don't like the taste of it or don't want such a heavy lethargy effect of it, they can take it as a suppository. So there's 2 ways to do it. One is to buy suppository molds and then mix the RSO oil with the coconut oil and then syringe it up and fill the molds, the little suppository molds. Stick them in the freezer. There's your suppositories, right? Okay, people go, ugh. Who wants to do that? Okay. Well, another way of doing it, which is very easy, is to mix the coconut oil with your little dose of cannabis oil, heat it up, syringe it up, let it cool, and I'm talking one of those little 1-gram syringes. They're very slender. You can buy them on Amazon, a pack of 100 for like $13. And then what you would do is you just insert it into the rectum about 1 inch up, so it has to go past the sphincter muscle. You just do it before bed. You're going to be laying down. It's not like anything's going to be coming out. So that's a way. And what it does is I think it gets taken up by the nerve down there. it goes throughout your system, and it doesn't give you such the high, the high that people don't, they don't want the high, especially if you're already sick of cancer.
Processed by the liver.
Right,
So
right. When you take it internal, it has to go through all this processing, and it takes time, and it changes. I think when it gets to your liver, anyway, THC changes in, I don't know all that stuff, but it does change, and so it's less potent if you use it as a suppository. So there's a lady from Australia on YouTube. She had lung cancer, so she shows her name's Sharon Kelly, and she shows her CT scan showing her her tumor in her lung, and she started on the RSO oil, and she didn't like that during the day she couldn't function very well. She just wanted to sleep. So someone told her about doing it the syringe, the suppository way. She did that, and she's like, yeah, I felt heavy during the day, but I can still do all the stuff I needed to do. And then after, I don't know how many months, 2-3 months, she shows her CT scan, and there is no cancer present. So it's like, yeah. So YouTube has a lot of pretty good stories out there like that.
No, on cancer, they want you to dose up, work up to quite a high dose.
Up to a gram a day, perhaps.
Yeah, so this is Rick Simpson's protocol. Everybody does it their own way, but he says, make the RSO oil, take 60 grams of the oil, so that's like that whole canning jar is about 60 grams. Take 60 grams of the oil in 90 days. That's the protocol. And then after that you would just take a maintenance dose, which would just be like a grain of rice. But some people I know, this lady who has a peritoneal cancer, I think she's 75. She started off with the little dose. She worked up to a half a syringe, so that's that's a hell of a lot of oil. It's concentrated, it's not like taking the tincture. So I was very impressed. So some people can do that, they can ramp up, and some people want to get as much as they can in them so they can finish the whole protocol. Other people cannot get past the little dab, the grain of rice size. That's understandable. So what I say to them is, keep doing it every day and be consistent, because everyone that I've seen that has had a good story and that are still alive has been very consistent and has taken responsibility for their situation, and they said, I'm going to do this, and they do it. The people that do it, oh, well, yeah, I took the oil about 3 weeks ago and I got really busy with it. They don't do so well from what I've seen. So suppository is a great way to go. Some people just shun that, but it really is a good way.
Couldn't you just take it, put it in reconstitute it with a little bit of 190 and honey or something, and remake it into a tincture?
Yeah. You can do that.
Or cook with it.
Or you can cook with it. But the first time I made it, and I wasn't paying attention to dosing, I took too much, and I had a hell of an experience. It's always that first experience you think you're going to die. And thankfully I have a next door neighbor that talked me down and started laughing on the phone. And I'm like, what are you laughing about? I think I need to call 911. And he's like, honey, he said, just wait a couple hours and call me back, okay? So it all worked out. But that concentrated oil, you just have to start off very low, very slow, and see what your body can do. Because not everybody can ramp up. Some people take a gram a day. They get up to that gram a day. I know.
Like, holy crap.
And some people it might not take 90 days. It might take 6 to 8 months to go through all that. But the important thing is that they keep doing it and they're consistent with it. Okay, and that is it. And there is, the other countries are way ahead of us as far as research. Of course, Israel, since they've been doing the research since the 60s, they're doing wonderful research. They did a research on whole plant medicine versus single molecule, like they do in the lab. They isolate THC or CBD. They found that, yes, that can be effective, but the effectiveness is a very narrow window, whereas the whole plant is more effective for a longer period of time. So I think there's something to be said about whole plant and keeping everything in a synergistic format, rather than singling. I mean, that's what they do in the labs.
Well, whole plant medicines actually, if I can interject, whole plant medicines that your body absorbs the oil or the water soluble nutrients that you would it's looking for.
Exactly. I mean, the plant is medicine because our body knows what to do with it. It recognizes it. When you ever take anything synthetic or made in a lab synthetically, it can work to a point, but your body, I think, has a hard time trying to integrate that into your natural system because it's not natural.
Paul, if you had an extremely high CBD, like an ACDC or something like, that's the same process. It pulls out the CBD the same way it would the THC.
Yeah, I think so. I have not tried the CBD because I never have enough material, but I would like to. I would like to do that. The thing is, when you decarboxylate it, I think it would work because I think CBD would do fine during the heating process. The thing is with the oil, because it gets to a high, it's a rolling boil there, a lot of the terpenoids, these terpene compounds, they have a very low boiling point, so basically those they go off, they're gone. You know, so basically you're left with very few other cannabinoids and terpenes, but what you want is the THC or the CBD.
If you want to get fancy, you can get some of those things. You can get terpenes.
Oh, I know. Now there's companies out there that produce terpene and terpene profiles of certain cannabis strains.
Do you think if you boiled it off more slowly at a lower temperature, that you could preserve more of the terpenes?
I think it would, but if it's too low, then the THC won't convert over to, I mean, the THCA, the acid form, won't convert over to THC.
So it's actually important to get it boiling?
According to Rick,
decarboxylate the THC and make it more effective.
yeah.
Requires a high heat.
Well, no, it has to reach 120,
That's what I was going to.
200 and
240, 245, somewhere in there.
It's nice, you know, before we light that joint, it's THCA. When we light that joint, it becomes THC because it's so hot.
right, and I believe that point is somewhere around 220 degrees. Well, below 220, because I believe THC evaporates at 220 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are people who are actually distilling off those terpenes in a fully closed loop system, where they're taking the terpenes off and then they're getting the extract, and then they're adding the terpenes back
in.
So it's the same plant material, it's just deconstructed and reconstructed.
Yeah, like with my tinctures, I started adding a couple handfuls of the raw material into my already decarboxylated tincture that's steeping, so that not only does it get CBD and THC, but now it's got the raw, the acid forms, CBDA, THCA, and other things added back into it. So I'm very happy with that I kind of experimented that way, because I don't know, I've tried some of those online terpene stores and you add the terpene. I didn't see a whole lot of difference, and I didn't feel like there was a lot of support in telling me how much to use per.
I feel like you can get equally good results just using essential oils and just adding essential oils that have terpenoid profiles like lemon, citrus, like citrus and pine and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, rosemary, eucalyptus, they all have,
because it's the same, you're just basically mixing and matching your custom terpene profile.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun and experimentation in the whole thing. But yeah, essential oils would be interesting for flavoring, to make it more palatable for people. So I did.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
This is really backing up, but you were talking about decarboxylating. Do you consider using the rice cooker heating it as the decarboxylating process, or do you decarboxylate before you heat anything?
No, I'm doing it like Rick Simpson does it in his video on his website, and he uses the rice cooker as a decarboxylator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, this is my contact information. If anyone wants to take a card, if you have any questions, you can always email me.
Can you tell us what it is for the people that are watching on?
Oh, the card?
Yeah.
Okay, this is my card, Píanta Tínta Collective. It has my contact information. And then
what's that? What's your phone number and or your
okay,
email?
gotcha.
Where
Yeah.
to find you?
Yes, where to find me? Phone number is 707-515-0048. Okay, my email is Píanta Tínta, which by the way is Italian. It means plant tincture in Italian. Okay, so Píanta Tínta, Pianta Tinta @gmail.com. Okay, and Dr. Bonnie Goldstein has some information on CBD and all the benefits of CBD. And also here is, I don't know where I got this, but I thought it was very informative. It talks about RSO oil and its applications, cannabis oil suppositories, how to make your own. It talks about skin cancer, what to do. I have a couple members who had some very suspicious lesions on their hands and arms. They used this oil, and for some of them it took a week, some of them took 2 weeks, but it cleared up the whole situation. So there's that. And then it has some lifestyle and diet changes. So that's good information. And not everybody wants to make RSO oil. Like I said, it does plan for 3/4 of a day to be doing it, especially your first time, because you're just kind of going through things.
You can do it in a large batch.
Pardon me?
You can do it in a large batch.
Yeah, you can do it in a large.
Instead of making a big stew.
Yeah, if you can get a big enough pot. I like the crock pots, but crock pots these days are vintage, and you pay a lot of money for vintage. Unless you know your grandmother might have one up in the attic, they're worth money. So I like the ceramic the best. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's
Thank
give
you.
Elizabeth
All right.
Thank you. Like she said before, she's got some material up here. Feel free to grab it. We have our jointed yoga every Monday from 7:45 to 9:15. If you guys want to come and check it out, $10 to $20 sliding scale donation. And then every first Wednesday of the month, we have our jointed yoga too, and that's a step up. It's intermediate class. So it's definitely not for beginners. But you can go on to our Facebook page. It'll have a link to our Eventbrite where you can get your tickets. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming. Get home safe.
They will not give a license to anybody that has a cannabis business in the premises of a residence.